thank you for coming again. And thank you for tuning in for those of you joining us virtually. Today we're going to be talking about cooking for brain health in Alzheimer's disease. So we are currently enrolling a clinical trial here at the KU-ADRC that's focused on the two eating patterns that we're going to talk about today. There are obviously some preventive eating patterns as well, but today we're going to be talking about therapeutic interventions. So for those individuals that already have cognitive decline or Alzheimer's disease. I'm Jessica Keller, a registered dietitian, and I'll also have a helper, Caitlin, who's also a registered dietitian who works here at the KU-ADRC as well. So why are we here? Just always to try and frame that. We're here because we love to cook and eat. I especially like the eating part, but today I'll be, doing the cooking part. So we're also interested in how nutrition impacts Alzheimer's disease. So we know that Alzheimer's is a disease of hypometabolism, which means that our brain cells aren't getting the energy they need, or when they get the energy that they need, they aren't able to use it effectively. So we're really trying to figure out new innovative ways to get energy to the brain so we can really diminish that cognitive decline. So today we're talking about two of these eating patterns, the therapeutic lifestyle changes diet, or heart healthy is how I'll kind of be referring to it today. And then a ketogenic diet. You may have heard of that. It's popular for weight loss right now. But also, it's very, we have evidence to support that it's beneficial for brain health. And just to kind of go over the hypotheses there, the heart healthy diet, we believe that what is good for the heart is also good for the brain. It's way easier to look at the heart. It's way easier to look at the blood vessels. When we can pump that energy up to the brain efficiently, then the brain can get the energy it needs to go ahead and function at that higher level. In terms of a ketogenic diet, we're trying to change the fuel source. So they're just trying to change the energy source that's getting to the brain. So once it gets there, instead of glucose, which is usually what the brain uses, it's going to be using fat, which is actually transferred into ketone bodies, and that can be preferentially used by the astrocytes, or the neurons, the cells in the brain, that are usually dying in dementia or Alzheimer's disease. So we'll just move on. A little humor for you. I like a good Venn diagram. So there you can see there are ants, bears, and people. Ants and people, we all hate spiders. Bears and people, employment in the circus. Attraction to garbage, bears and ants. But what's all there in the middle? An interest in picnics, okay? So we'll kind of be talking about these diets in a Venn diagram sort of way today. And please do feel free to jump in. This is a conversational cooking demo. Obviously, it's a small group today. Happy to answer any questions at the end. And obviously, for those watching virtually, I'll be able to follow up with you as well. So this is kind of a busy slide, but I always like to show it. It really does break down the diets. It shows how different the diets are on paper. Today, we're going to be looking at foods and how they taste and how they can both taste kind of similar, but use really different ingredients and provide those different types of energy for the brain through different eating patterns. So that TLC, or heart healthy diet, it limits fat. So all types of fat, but mostly saturated fat, cholesterol, and trans fat. It limits sodium intake. It does emphasize whole real food, which we'll see in the Venn diagram is one of those things that these two diets share in common. But with the sodium issue, or with limiting the whole real foods, that sodium issue kind of goes away. We actually get most of our salt intake from processed foods, not the salt shaker. So your canned goods, your chips, your crackers, your shelf-stable items instead of the salt shaker. So by just trying to eat whole real foods, you'll kind of hit that mark anyway. But we also try to limit that on the heart healthy diet. There is a big emphasis on fiber. You'll hear me talk about fiber a lot today. So fiber is the magic word. It's in that center part when we look at the Venn diagram as well. But the heart healthy does look at fruits and vegetables. And then that last point on both of these, it's just a macronutrient breakdown. It's just for your information to show you how different these two diets are. Now with the ketogenic diet, it is a high-fat, very low carbohydrate diet. So very different. The heart healthy diet really focuses on the quality of carbohydrate versus the amount of carbohydrate. The ketogenic diet can only work with carbohydrate restriction. So we only produce those ketone bodies that the brain can use really efficiently for energy if we restrict carbohydrate. So that's really the point to drive home with the ketogenic diet. So that means that you cannot have starchy vegetables or fruit. There is a small limited amount of fruit that you can have per day, a handful of berries that are high in fiber. But otherwise, no starchy vegetables or fruit. It has an emphasis on non-starchy vegetable intake. So sometimes we see a ketogenic diet on the internet and it's, bacon wrapped, cheese smothered, mayonnaise dipped, everything. Yeah, that'll get you into ketosis. But, I'm a dietitian. I really can't tell you to do that. So really what we try to focus on is a well-formulated ketogenic diet, or one of those diets that really does still emphasize 4 to 6 servings of non-starchy vegetables, getting your fiber, getting your vitamins and micronutrients and things like that. The healthy fats, not necessarily all bacon, mayonnaise, everything, although we'll have some of that today. Sometimes people follow a ketogenic diet can misstep. When we eat less carbohydrate, we tend to fill it with protein. Protein can become glucose in the body. So we really have to watch that and realize that this is a high-fat diet and not a high-protein diet. And so then lastly, we can see the macronutrient breakdown. So vastly different on paper what these two diets are, but can still achieve benefits for those people with dementia, which is brilliant. The body is an amazing, amazing thing that can use our fuels in different ways. So here's my fancy Venn diagram. So on the left is our heart healthy diet. So again, you can see, and on the right is the keto, the low fat versus high fat, the high quality carbs or restrict carbs, daily fruit, minimal fruit, low dietary cholesterol, less emphasis on cholesterol. When we're not storing fat in our body because we're using it as fuel, we burn through those fat sources. Low-fat dairy in that heart-healthy group is emphasized, whereas full-fat dairy products like cheeses and things like that are important, and there's an emphasis on heavy cream. Even full-fat milk has lactose in it, so that's a sugar, and that really doesn't work with the ketogenic diet. An interesting thing is on the heart-healthy diet, we reduce sodium, like we were talking about. However, on the ketogenic diet, we actually have to use the salt shaker more often to achieve electrolyte balance. Electrolytes are those things that keep us hydrated. Sodium's one of the main electrolytes in the body. When we have less glucose circulating in our body because we're not eating carbohydrate, we have less insulin. Insulin is what takes that glucose up into the cell so that we can use it. We'll talk about insulin resistance a little bit here today as well. But when insulin goes down because we're not eating carbohydrate, it actually tells the kidney that we don't need sodium in our body. So it actually excretes that sodium into the urine. So we need to use that salt shaker quite a bit more on a ketogenic diet. And then we get to the fun middle part, which of course at the top in all caps is fiber. We want fiber in the diet. Fiber is the part of a plant that we can't absorb, but it still does wonders for our body. It slows down digestion so we can absorb nutrients. It helps lower our cholesterol. It helps us improve insulin sensitivity. Are you familiar with the term insulin resistance? Have you heard of that before? No. So, like I said, insulin takes glucose up into the cell. When we become insulin resistant, it means that our cells aren't responsive to that insulin. And so then we have high levels of glucose floating around our body, which can be quite damaging. That happens in the brain too. So if that glucose, that main fuel source that our body uses, gets up to the brain and our brain cells can't take it up into the cell, we run out of gas. Those brain cells can then atrophy, shrink, and die. And that can really contribute to dementia and cognitive decline. So we really want to improve that insulin sensitivity so that our cells can get the fuel it needs, or we can change the fuel source because ketone bodies don't require insulin. So those are the two hypotheses here. Moving on, in the middle of that Venn diagram, there's an emphasis on healthy fats in both of these diets. So those omega-3 fatty acids, they're anti-inflammatory, brain food. Those come in like nuts and seeds, ground flax, fatty fish, things like that. Avocados are huge in the ketogenic diet, but can also be great in a heart-healthy diet. It's full of those mono and polyunsaturated fatty acids that are really good for our body. It's also full of fiber, potassium, a lot of other vitamins and micronutrients, antioxidants, things like that. Again, there's an emphasis in both these diets on whole, real food. Once we limit processed foods, then we can really start eating more nutrient-dense food, especially if you're in a state of hypometabolism, like people with dementia can be and usually are. Then we need to really inundate the body with more nutrients. So eating those whole, real foods and limiting processed foods is really important. And of course, there at the bottom is that improving insulin sensitivity. And that'll come and go as we talk about the foods that we're preparing today. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started with the fun part, which is the cooking. So what we're going to start with is the spicy buffalo bites. This is a ketogenic diet-friendly dish. You might notice if you look up a ketogenic diet or look at keto recipes that cauliflower is a big deal. It's really a sponge for flavor. It doesn't taste like much on its own. It's very earthy, maybe a little dirty, but when you cook it in different ways, you can rice it and make it like rice. You can mash it like mashed potatoes. It really does fill that void of that starchy carbohydrate, and we can flavor it, which we're going to do a lot of flavoring today. Okay, so what we'll first do, preheated the oven because we'll throw them in the oven. They need time to bake, so we'll get those going. So we're going to go ahead and move forward. We're going to start with heating up and browning some butter. One thing about a ketogenic diet, and I'm going to leave this Venn diagram up for reference, and if you have questions about where things fit, let me know. A ketogenic diet, you have to get fat in. And sometimes that can be difficult for people. But this does mean cooking with a lot of butter, olive oil, avocado oil, these types of things, sunflower, safflower oil, but then also using them to top things off, using your vegetables as a vessel to get more fat in. I think sometimes people struggle to get their fat in, but we like to teach lots of ways. As you can see, that's quite a bit of butter that we're going to use for the whole recipe. But if you like butter, you're in for a treat. Are you okay with spicy food? It's not too spicy. Have you ever had buffalo chicken wings? It's similar to that. All right, so we'll go ahead and get the butter going. So we're going to melt this butter down, and right as it begins to brown, we'll add some garlic. If you're like me, you measure garlic with your heart and don't follow the recipe. Today we'll follow the recipe. I like to cut, so this does call for quite a bit of butter. I like to cut it into pads so it melts consistently throughout. So as you can see, it's already getting started there. And it smells delicious. Have you heard of a ketogenic diet before? Jamie, you have? Yeah? Yeah. It's quite popular these days. All right, so we're getting some bubbles going. Have either of you had any riced cauliflower before? Yeah. I love to make it at home, but I I use a lot of seasoning on it. It needs it. All right, so we're really getting some pops there. You want to add the garlic right at the end so it doesn't burn and get that weird kind of burnt garlic taste. So right when the foam starts to turn that golden tan at the top is when we'll add it. Starting to get it a little in the middle, but we'll let it spread a little bit. Oh yeah. All right, so now we'll add the garlic and kind of spread it around. All right, we'll let that simmer for a moment. All right. It's smelling good. And that garlic will turn brown pretty quickly. Okay, so it looks ready. So what we'll do next, we've got our big bowl of cauliflower. For your reference, I've doubled the recipe that you have on the page. Yeah. But everyone's getting their broccoli or their cauliflower today. So we'll go ahead and dump that over. Try to get as much as you can. So now we'll just kind of get that all mixed around. Can you smell the garlic? Yes. Next we'll add hot sauce. Today we're using buffalo sauce. It's kind of a milder hot sauce. Obviously you could use a different kind of hot sauce, but also some hot sauces do have sugar in them, so you have to read the label. The label is going to tell you everything you need to know, especially if you're following a ketogenic diet. This is a vinegar-based hot sauce, which vinegar-based hot sauces are the way to go if you're trying to avoid carbohydrate. So we're going to go ahead and pour this over, kind of spread it around. I recommend not leaning over it at this point in time. And we'll do the same thing. We'll just kind of mix it up, make sure everything's nice and coated. And if you don't have a big mixing bowl like this, a sheet pan will work. Just kind of move everything around. So we're going to put it in the oven anyway. All right. So because of all the butter and the hot sauce on this, you do not need to spray the sheet pan. Caitlin, can you grab me a sheet pan? Thanks. All right. So for those of you watching at home, thank you much. All right. Get this out of the way. So now we'll just dump this out. All right. So now we've got the cauliflower ready to go in the oven. Leave that in there for about 20 minutes. You can leave it in longer for crispier, but once it starts to get that golden brown, we'll take it out, and we'll check on it every now and then. So next we'll move on to the spiced chickpeas. That's a TLC recipe. So the keto buffalo bites, great snack. We're going to move to another snack over here. We went ahead and kind of did a little prep on these. They do take a little longer. Chickpeas or garbanzo beans are really high in fiber, right? They're also a great snack. They're a heart-healthy snack. When you get them nice and crispy and seasoned like this, you can get that crunch that you might be missing from processed foods like chips and crackers. But what we do, and the other thing is garbanzo beans or chickpeas are really affordable. I think we got these 2 cans. I think they were 89 cents each. So a really affordable way to get a snack. I like to make these. You can have them laying around in a dish. Just walk by and pop one in. They don't have much flavor. So we went ahead and put some seasoning on there, a little bit of cumin, which is a Middle Eastern spice. Does pack a little bit of a punch, so just a little bit. A cayenne pepper, which has a bit of an earthier flavor, but also a little bit of heat, that kind of Middle Eastern flavor. We only use a little bit of olive oil to coat the chickpeas, so it really picks up the seasoning. That olive oil, when you roast things, it will burn off a little bit or cook off. So that's a benefit of roasting. You're only going to get so much. So we're going to go ahead and put these in the oven, and then we're going to check on them and hope that they get nice and crispy. All right. So we're going to move on now that we've got our snacks taken care of. We'll move on to salads. We're going to start with our keto salad. Today we're going to use broccoli, one of my favorites. Certainly use greens. This has more fiber and quite a few other nutrients as well. Broccoli is another great staple vegetable on a ketogenic diet. Helps you feel really full. People like to eat it in a lot of different formats. You could eat it raw, dipped in some blue cheese. You can steam it, you can roast it, things like that. So what we'll do here is we'll just kind of put it together. We'll talk about the ingredients as we go. And then when we make the heart-healthy salad, we'll kind of do some comparisons there. So we've got our broccoli. We're going to add some red onion. Red onion has quite a few antioxidant properties and nutrients, however, also quite a bit of flavor. I know it's polarizing for people. Do either of you just hate red onion? What's that? You're okay with red onion? Okay. So we'll go ahead and add some red onion here. We'll add a little less since it's not our favorite. All right, so we'll kind of mix that up a little bit because that's quite a bit. And salads, the one thing I love about salads, you can prep this in advance, throw it in the fridge, but what I would recommend is not adding the dressing until the end. One sneak thing that dietitians like to tell people is, you know, when you go to a restaurant, order the dressing on the side. They really like to overdress it. We tend to like people to go ahead and do that on their own. We're going to add some cheese. So cheese is another staple item on keto. However, people can overdo it with cheese on a ketogenic diet. Although cheese does have fat, it's a dairy product, it also has protein. So we just have to be careful about how much protein we're getting on this diet. So I'll just kind of throw that in there and mix it up. We're getting nice and colorful now. All right. I'm going to go ahead and add, this is a homemade keto dressing. For the sake of time, I just went ahead and made it up on its own. It is mayonnaise based. Mayonnaise is a go-ahead on the ketogenic diet, real mayonnaise, not Miracle Whip or anything like that, because it is full fat. I like to get the mayonnaise that is olive oil based. Again, it's just that higher quality of fat. And then we've also added some vinegar. Again, vinegar is one of those go-to flavors on a ketogenic diet that doesn't have carbohydrate. A little bit of garlic salt, a little bit of olive oil, and some black pepper. You can also add, one thing that I think this would taste really good with is a little bit of lemon juice if you want to lighten it up. So we'll add some of this, just a little, and then we'll toss it. Make sure it's even. It's getting nice and creamy. Add some more. And this dressing took me maybe 10 minutes to make. I threw it in the fridge overnight. Sometimes having things in the fridge overnight makes them a lot more flavorful the next day. So I do like to do that. All right. Thank you. Bacon. So what I've done is just fried this up real quick in a pan and then cut it into bacon bits. Certainly you could purchase bacon bits pre-made at the store, but again, flip it around and look at that ingredient list. Sometimes with those shelf-stable items, especially things like this, and shredded cheese, I should have mentioned, there can be anti-clumping agents in the container. Those anti-clumping agents that keeps it from getting all as one clump have carbohydrate in them. So really just have to turn around and look at the label. So on a more restrictive diet like a ketogenic diet, that label is going to be your best friend. So we've added the bacon. I'll toss it a little bit. Sometimes people just leave that sitting on top. And then we'll add some sunflower seeds. So in both of these diets, we really do emphasize intake of nuts and seeds. They're high in fiber. They also have really good high quality fatty acids. Those omega-3 fatty acids that are really hard to find. Fatty fish, sure, but a lot of people don't like fatty fish. You can still find these in plant-based items like sunflower seeds. And sunflower seeds are lower in carbohydrate than some of the other nuts. So we'll sprinkle those on top. I just got plain roasted. You can get, they make a number of different types of roasted sunflower seeds. Steer clear of the honey roasted if you're on a ketogenic diet. Turn that label around, the bag around, and look at the label. You can also certainly get the salted ones on this diet because, again, we need to really make sure that we're getting that sodium in our diet. All right. That is a pretty salad. So for those of you at home, colorful. It's got a lot of goodies in there. I think every bite will have a different type of crunch and snack. One thing about following a keto diet is sometimes people miss that crunch or that mastication, what we call it, of eating chips or crackers or toast or something like that. So really finding new ways to get that type of crunch in the diet is really helpful. And then Caitlin helped us out. We want to wait till the last minute with avocado. Obviously, it can brown pretty quickly. So she went ahead and cubed up an avocado. Avocados are huge in this diet. Hopefully, if you like avocado, there should be avocado intake daily if you can. It's got loads of potassium, which is another electrolyte and something that most people don't get in their enough of in their diet. It's actually really high in fiber. One whole avocado has around 14 grams of fiber. So a lot of people don't realize that. When people think fiber, they think leafy greens, they think broccoli, they think maybe black beans and legumes or lentils, something like that, which obviously we don't do on a ketogenic diet. But people can get kind of tired of broccoli and cauliflower sometimes. So really getting that avocado in there. And I think that it's one of those things that you can eat at any meal. You can fold it into eggs at breakfast. You can eat it, on a lettuce-wrapped taco for lunch. Some people just eat it with a spoon. All right. We'll just top this off with the last of our red onion. And there you have it, a most wonderful salad. So we'll keep this ready to go. Thank you. We'll take a peek at what's going on in the oven. Oh, it smells very good. Lots of different smells. All right, so our chickpeas, see they're getting kind of golden brown. So we'll go ahead and just kind of move these around a little bit, turn them, make sure every side's getting some of that bottom pan heat. Move them around. All right, we'll throw those back in. Cauliflower's looking good. It's getting a little golden brown, but we'll leave it in there for another 10 or 15 minutes, get it crispy. So we'll move on then to the heart healthy salad, which is our blueberry spinach salad. All right. This is another really pretty salad. So we've got a big bowl of spinach. Spinach is one of those dark leafy greens. It's chock full of carotenoids. Carotenoids are those really active antioxidants in the body. Antioxidants remedy a lot of inflammation. Oxidative stress is one of those big keywords you may have heard in health and nutrition news articles and things like that. In a state of hypometabolism, this can be really helpful of really limiting that inflammation. And we also have noticed in some of our research, and there's evidence to support that individuals with dementia and Alzheimer's disease, even if they eat as much of these antioxidant containing foods as other people that don't have dementia or Alzheimer's disease, they don't retain it in their body. So we really want people to get more and more and more of these really antioxidant rich foods. Okie doke. So really just going to compile this salad. Again, I went ahead and made the dressing at home. We can talk about the differences between the dressings. The keto dressing obviously was an olive oil mayonnaise base, whereas this one is a balsamic vinegar and olive oil base, but it also has Dijon mustard, which would be okay on a ketogenic diet. Mustard's a go-ahead since it's vinegar based. But then this also has a little bit of maple syrup for that flavor, but it's whole, it's real maple syrup. It's not that kind of fakey. You could do a sugar-free if you really wanted to reduce sugar, but it just adds a little bit of sweetness. It's not as sweet as maybe you would find in a restaurant, but it will still be delicious since we're also adding blueberries to this salad. Okay, so we'll go ahead and just throw these items together. So in the last one we used red onion, we're going to use red onion again. I had chopped the onion in that one. This one we're just going to do in some slivers. Really, it's just your preference. Some people like that small bite. Some people like to know when they're getting the bigger slices. So we'll throw those on there. I'm going to go ahead and kind of mix this up a little since they're kind of still together. And another thing that we've done is we've removed most of the stems on the spinach and then chopped it. Sometimes it's just easier to eat that way, especially in older adults. Sometimes there's some chewing issues or mastication issues, so really just catering to the needs of the individual is really important. But we've gone ahead and chopped it for today. Okay, so we've gotten the onion kind of mixed throughout. There's a big chunk there, so let's spread it out. Okay, Next, we'll add some chopped pistachios. Pistachios, I feel like, have gained a lot of popularity in recent years. I don't know if that's a congratulations to their marketing team, but I see them everywhere. So these are out of the shell. You can purchase them out of the shell. They're just roasted and salted, and we've gone ahead and chopped them. Again, it's to your preference. I tend to think that chopping nuts in salads is the better way to go, especially in older adults. But these actually have quite a bit of carbohydrate, so these nuts are restricted on a ketogenic diet. So that's one of the differences between these salads. We had the sunflower seeds on the keto salad, now we have the pistachios. So we'll go ahead and add those. But both have similar qualities in terms of containing those really good fats and the crunch, and I think they're quite delicious. So we've added those in. Those are pretty easy to mix around and get even. So, lucky for us, it's summertime and it's berry season. So these, I may have tested one or two, are quite delicious. I think a lot of people tend to ask, is the nutrient content of a frozen blueberry the same as a fresh blueberry? Absolutely. So year-round, you can probably find some just as delicious. You may have to thaw them out and take a little more time. These are fresh. We've gone ahead and washed and dried them, and we're just going to go ahead and add these in. Blueberries, I'm sure you've heard, are a superfood. They are full of those antioxidants, those anti-inflammatory nutrients. So we're going to add those in. Now this is where we really deviate from the ketogenic diet. You can have about a handful or a quarter cup, about the palm of your hand, of berries on a ketogenic diet per day. I like to think of a keto diet as a bank account. How many carbs am I spending throughout the day? Where do I want to spend them? So for people that really like fruit, that's a place where they can spend some of their carbohydrate. But the berries are the way to go in terms of fruit, as they are high in fiber. So, okay, we've added quite a bit of blueberries in there. Okay. So now we'll just go ahead and add that balsamic vinaigrette that we made at home. Just dump it on in there. This one is quite a bit thinner, as you can see. It's not mayonnaise based. So it comes right out. Mix these together. All right. Lastly, what we'll do is we're going to top with some feta crumbles. If you prefer goat cheese, by all means go for that. If you don't prefer cheese at all, fine with me. But that low-fat dairy, and this is low-fat feta, that low-fat dairy is part of that heart-healthy eating pattern. So we're going to add feta. And that, my friends, is also a pretty salad. All right. You could also, thank you. In the middle of our Venn diagram, in the middle of these salads, you could also add some avocado to that salad. That would kind of be a preference thing. I can think that blueberry and avocado would be delicious together. I like to put kiwi on my avocado, which is kind of, people think is a little strange. I think it's delicious, but you could certainly do that and get a little more of that healthy fat. So we're gonna go ahead and check back in on what's in the oven. Ooh, spicy. Yep. Looks like our chickpeas are nice and brown. So So now we're going to add a little bit of cayenne, just a pinch. I like cayenne quite a bit. Just adds a little bit more flavor. And then just a little touch of black pepper throughout. Roll these around again. Looks like they may need just a few more minutes. All right. So we'll check on these cauliflower bites. You can see there they're getting that golden brown. You can also kind of tell that that hot sauce is cooked off a little bit. So it looked like we were putting a lot on there, but it's actually cooking off quite a little bit. There is some butter and some of that hot sauce there at the bottom. Turn these around a little bit, and what we'll do at the end is we'll pour that over the top for just some extra fat and flavor. All right, we'll throw those back in for a few more minutes.
All right, so we will transition to talking a little bit about our currently enrolling study, the Therapeutic Diets in Alzheimer's Disease Study, or what we like to call TDAD for short. So we are looking for individuals with mild to moderate Alzheimer's disease for a 3-month or 12-week-long study following either of these diets that we've been talking about today. So either that therapeutic lifestyle changes or heart-healthy diet or the ketogenic diet eating pattern. So just some eligibility criteria. We do require that people be age 50 to 90 years old and speak English. We also require that they have a dedicated study partner, and this person will need to attend all the study visits. They will also need to be somebody that has at least daily contact with the person who's actually participating. And we do that because we just want the individual to have support and accountability, and if they need help procuring and preparing food, then that study partner would be available for that. We do not require that they live under the same roof, although that's usually the most ideal situation. But this person will check in with a dietitian on weekly or biweekly phone calls, fill out surveys and questionnaires, meet with clinicians, so it should be somebody that knows the participant well enough to give feedback. We also require that people be community dwelling, so not living in a memory care unit or a nursing facility. Basically, we need people to be able to control what they're eating. Some other medical scenarios that we exclude would be diabetes that requires insulin, any recent cancer that's within 5 years that required chemotherapy or radiation therapy, and no recent cardiac events within 1 year, and that would include things like heart attack, angioplasty, or uncontrolled atrial fibrillation. There are 2 brain scans, so we do require that people not have implantable devices such as pacemakers, defibrillators, or cochlear implants that would preclude them from having a brain scan. And then we just have some basic weight requirements and body composition requirements, so a BMI of 20 or higher. We do this because on any nutrition study, it could be the case that people lose weight, and we certainly do not want to contribute to frailty. And then less than 350 pounds, and that is just a requirement for the brain scan machine. So just talking about what this study looks like. So what will you do? Participants will be randomly assigned. This is a randomized controlled trial, which means that I push a button and the computer tells me which diet you get. We don't get to choose. We don't get to finagle that at all. It's just the way that these clinical trials work. So you'll either be assigned to the heart healthy or the ketogenic diet group. Then you will follow that eating pattern for 3 months and perform and track daily measures. Those daily measures look different depending on which group you're in, but I will say they're not burdensome at all. We don't require that you write down everything you eat. We do ask that you fill out a food record 3 times in the study. So it's not totally burdensome, these daily measures. There are supplements that will be provided to individuals in either of these groups. They are also going to be different supplements depending on which eating pattern you would be following. There are a total of 6 study visits, 2 of which include a brain scan. However, for those individuals who travel in from out of town, we can push a couple of those study visits together for a total of 4 study visits. When we do that, it just makes for a couple long days, so we don't prefer to do that, but in the case that we need to, then we can do that. Some other measures that we will take throughout the study include cognitive testing, blood draws, there are some questionnaires and surveys, basic vital signs, a fun thing that we use called the veggie meter that shines a light on your finger and acts as an objective measure of fruit and vegetable intake, and then some urinalysis, testing of the urine. Participants and study partners will also meet with a registered dietitian at all the study visits and have one-on-one education sessions over the phone with the dietitian throughout the study. I always like to remind people one of the added benefits of being in a clinical trial is getting that extra care from healthcare professionals and things that would not generally be free or covered by insurance. So that's another perk. And then participants are compensated for meeting study milestones. It is modest compensation, but every little bit counts. Okay, so that's what we're going to wrap up on in terms of talking about the study. So we'll get back to talking a little bit about some fun ingredients that we used in the desserts we're tasting today. These desserts had to be prepped in advance. So next time, come in person to the cooking demonstration and you'll get to taste some of these treats.
So we have 2 desserts for you today. I did make them in advance for the sake of time, but also because they need to chill or be frozen. So we'll start with let's do the keto chocolate peanut butter fat bombs to keep it in order. So these fat bombs are quite popular on a ketogenic diet. Like I said, some people struggle to get their fat in throughout the day. A lot of people have a sweet tooth. So a good way to remedy those is to make fat bombs, and they're actually really easy to make. They're coconut oil based, so what you do is you just melt down some coconut oil. Coconut oil is a great, I brought the ingredients to talk about, so let's go ahead and take these out. So coconut oil is a great thing to use on a ketogenic diet. Coconuts have a lot of medium chain triglycerides, or MCTs. If you do any ketogenic diet reading, you'll read about that. MCTs, like it sounds, they're smaller than long chain triglycerides or fats that we eat in our diet, and that we can actually readily absorb them into our blood and send them out into the body as ketone bodies to be taken up and used in the brain as well as in other tissues. But other fats have to go through a quite lengthy process of being made smaller, packaged, sent somewhere else, unpackaged, repackaged, and sent out. So it's a very long process. So these can really get into your bloodstream and boost you into ketosis quite a bit faster. So you might read has a lot of saturated fat, but in this diet is very good in terms of helping with ketosis. So that's the base. It melts at room temperature, so that's why they have to stay in the freezer. So once you make them, throw them in the freezer, and when you're ready to have one, grab it out of the freezer. It's unfortunate, but just part of the deal. So we also use this unsweetened 100% cocoa powder. You can find this in the baking aisle at any grocery store. It has, let's look, 1 gram of carbohydrate. Still tastes like chocolate. And has polyphenols, which are antioxidants, right? And 2 grams of fiber. So that'll be in those fat bombs as well. Another item is Truvia, also known as stevia. This is liquid, also found in the baking aisle. So this is basically a little dabble do you, so just a little squirt into the whole thing, and it has less than 1 gram of carbohydrate, but tastes very sweet. It's a very potent sweetener, but still natural. So those are the 3 of the items, and then we use natural peanut butter. So I know a lot of people love peanut butter. A lot of people love to snack on peanut butter. One bad thing about peanut butter is it generally has sugar in it. So this is my go-to peanut butter. It's Smucker's All Natural. When you find a natural peanut butter, read the label. It should have 2 ingredients. Those ingredients, peanuts and salt. Those are the only 2 ingredients that you need. I will say that this is the peanut butter that will get a layer of oil on top. That's a good way to tell that it's a natural peanut butter. You do have to stir it every time you use it, but it's the healthier version and keto friendly. So what you do is you just melt down that coconut oil in a pan. It takes 30 seconds because it's already not solid at room temperature. You add that into the peanut butter, add the cocoa powder, a little squirt of stevia, whisk together till it's uniform. I put it in a Pyrex pour, and then I pour it into a silicone tray. You could also use a cupcake tray, but the silicone ones that you can just pop right out, and I can grab one and show you. So that's the fat bombs, but you can see the nutrition content. There are 9 grams of fat in each fat bomb. So if you're struggling to hit your fat goals, or if you just have a craving for chocolate or something else, then you can go pop in one of those and still not get too many carbs. It only has 2 grams of carbohydrate. Fat bombs can come in a lot of different flavors. I did chocolate peanut butter. People like chocolate peanut butter. I do. So next we'll just go ahead and, they can go ahead and try them. And the molds come in all different sizes, so I made mine look like Reese's peanut butter cups. I don't know if I should say trademark names, but absolutely, yeah. You can take your mask down and eat, absolutely. I'll go ahead and talk about the other thing on your plate, which is a chocolate and peanut butter. That's a theme, I know, but we're trying to see the Venn diagram here. So they do have similar flavor profiles, but way different in terms of their nutrient content. So that energy ball that is on the heart healthy side of things, its base is oats. Oats are high in fiber, yes. So we use rolled oats and then reduced fat peanut butter. Again, I would look for an all natural reduced fat peanut butter to reduce the sugar content. But in this eating pattern, we do try to limit the fat. So go low fat. They also make reduced fat sugar-free, so that's a good way to go. One item I really did want to talk about is this ground flax. So flaxseed is really, really a great source of omega-3 fatty acids, especially alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA, which is an essential fatty acid, which means we have to eat it because our body can't create it. So those are scarce in our eating environment. This is a great way to incorporate that in. It doesn't taste like much. You can hide it in things like, I don't know if you can taste it in here in the energy ball, but that's why we call it an energy ball, because this is a great source of those fatty acids, and they're very anti-inflammatory too. It's very cheap. I got this bag 6 months ago. You know, it's a big bag, not expensive. I put it in meatballs, you know, anything that you can really hide it in. One thing about flax seed is if you eat the whole seed, then it's not as bioavailable, so it's good to get it ground. So I just wanted to mention that. So where this would deviate from a ketogenic dessert would be that it has honey in it. It also has a little bit of vanilla extract, but then some semi-sweet chocolate chips, which if you were to use, you know, sparingly wouldn't be too bad, which also has those polyphenols that are antioxidants. But otherwise that really does deviate from the ketogenic diet for those reasons. But You can see that each one of those balls has 4 grams of fiber, which is like eating a bowl of spinach. How are they?
Fabulous.
Fabulous? Which one did you prefer?
You have to choose. They're both great.
Yeah?
They were both very good. Maybe the better fat balls.
The fat bombs?
And I like the energy balls just because they're a little bit more fiber to chew on.
Yeah, okay. So the answers were fat bomb and energy ball. So we have a tie. So we'll leave it to the audience. I'll make a poll.
But thank you for joining us virtually or in person for this cooking demonstration. If you or someone you know may qualify for our study, please provide your contact information. My contact information is there at the bottom. So that's my email address, or that's the number to the main line of the KU Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, and they would be happy to talk to you about this currently enrolling study as well as other currently enrolling studies. And we'd love to get as many people engaged in our work as possible. So again, thank you so much for your attendance.